Welcome to part 2 of our chat with Rhys Williams. We will discuss his current role as captain at A-League team Western Sydney Wanderers. We talk to Rhys about his time playing in Saudi Arabia. We get Rhys's views on why football isn't as popular in Australia as it is in Europe. And we also get an answer to the question everybody wants to know the answer to. Just how did he cultivate that magnificent beard?
So, Rhys, you're back in Australia now after 3 years in Saudi Arabia. So you're on your third A-League club now, Western Sydney Wanderers. You're the captain. How has the season gone for you so far, and what's your targets for the season, both personally and for the club?
Yeah, it's brilliant to be back. It's brilliant to be in this environment again with the boys think I don't shut up. I've been in Saudi for 3 years with people that don't speak English, and I'm a bit mouthy at training, so I think they can let me off. But it's great to be back. It's such a big club as well, and you don't realise the size of this club and the fan base until you're actually inside it. And to be named captain here with this squad we have. We understand there's a lot of pressure on us this year because of the squad that we have, and although no one has put us to win the league, that's what we want to do. That they're our targets. We want to go as far as we can. We want to win as much as we can, and we want to have a successful season. Like I said, we understand the pressures we have here, and me as captain as well. I'll take a lot of it on the chin, and I'm happy to with this squad. With this manager, with these players, this club, and it just feels like a perfect fit for me at the moment. I'm looking for reasons why we can't achieve what we want to achieve, and I just can't find any. And for me personally, I want to stay fit. I want to help the players. I want to help the young boys coming through. I want to help the squad win, and I want to help bring some silverware back to this great club.
And you started the season pretty well. I think you had a good away win last weekend.
Yeah, in the league we've played 3. We drew the first 2. The Sydney Derby was the first one, which was really cagey. The second one we weren't quite at the races, but we managed not to lose. And then on Friday night we got our first win on the board. So we play again on Saturday against Macarthur, which is another local team who are undefeated, and we look forward to that. The cup game, there was a cup game before the season started, which we played. Probably one of our strongest sides. We've got a lot of players. We've got a big squad, so we've got a lot of good players who can play. And so the other night we changed it up. I think there was maybe 11 changes in the starting lineup, and it didn't quite go to plan. We ended up losing the game. They had two errors really, and there was a way back in the game, but I think we finished the game with 8 or 9 youth products playing. So you always have to take, okay, it's a negative losing against an NPL side with all due respect, but you have to always look for positives as well and move on.
We were talking before about your time at Melbourne Victory. So, Dimi, you're a huge Victory fan. What's kind of you said a little bit about it, but what's your memories of Rhys when he played for the Victory? It was obviously a successful season for you. And then
yellow cards,
Rhys,
huh?
Yeah, and then to Rhys, what's your memory of playing for Victory in that season? So you were first, Dimi.
Yeah, so for me, not to big him up too much, but honestly, Rhys was our player of the year that year.
You can go for it if you want.
Yeah, no, you were our player of the year that year. We had if you remember, up till probably February, we were struggling. There was a particular game where I think we lost 2-1 or 2-0 to Brisbane, where some of the lads, we weren't too happy with the performance, and there was a few boos at the full-time whistle. And I think from February, March onwards, we had, I think, the ACL come back in. We started getting a few results. We sort of picked it up. Mm-hmm. But Rhys all year was the rock at the back. I mean, he was absolutely class, and you could just see as soon as he stepped foot with the Victory shirt, he was just a class above. I mean, on the ball as a centre half was absolutely class for us. And unfortunately, it didn't. Obviously, for the club, it ended brilliantly. We had that sensational win in Sydney, where Rhys probably doesn't have great memories of that night because he hurt himself in the warm up.
Exactly. See, there's another one that I missed.
Yeah, but that was the famous Terry Antonis goal, which was epic, and then we had the big win in Newcastle the week after. But couldn't speak highly enough of Rhys, and we were devastated that obviously he missed the semi and the grand final, and obviously devastated that he left because he was quite clearly, probably I'd say, besides Del Pierre back in our 14-15 season, probably the best defender we've had. So like I said earlier, if Rhys ever had the chance to come back to Melbourne, I'm sure he'd be welcomed with open arms by the fans.
You've got good memories in Melbourne,
No,
Rhys?
thank you. It's really nice. Yeah, you just give me goosebumps there, mate, talking about that, because I had such a good time there, and it's really nice to hear feedback from the fans, and just sounds like they appreciated me there, which is brilliant. You know, I had a great time there. You know, I haven't won much team accolades in my career, and to go there and win it as well with the team we had, and for the city, and them fans are brilliant. The fans were great from day one. You know, all the way through, they're always positive. They were a great bunch, and to win that at the end for the fans was unbelievable. I loved my time there. My son's held that trophy, which is his first trophy as well in a way. So I'll always have unbelievable memories of the team we had. I still talk with Kevin Muscat now, and I go back to them bonds that shine a little bit brighter once you've been successful, you know, and that was certainly one. And also James Truisi here, and Terry Antonis is here now
Terry,
as well. So,
yeah.
So we got three of us, and we were saying to the gaffer here, I hope it's good luck omen, because the last time Victory won something was the last time us three were together. So hopefully it's an omen for us this year, and we'll take anything that we can. But I loved my time there, you know, the stadium, the fans, the whole aura about the club. The chairman's brilliant, the gaffer was brilliant, the boys were brilliant, fans. I can't speak highly enough of the squad, and I just don't want them to do as well this year, that's all.
Well, how about we finish 1 and 2? How about
just
we
this
can finish?
year? You can come, if we come first, you can finish second. That's all right.
So I just want to flip back for a minute towards Newcastle United, because you're uniquely placed to talk about football in Saudi Arabia. Obviously, the takeover of Newcastle has made massive world news. Newcastle have all of a sudden become the richest sports club in the history of any sport ever at the drop of a hat, which is quite exciting for us. So there is the controversies. Obviously, I think it's important that we don't pull the wool over our eyes about that. It's important to acknowledge that. But in a purely footballing sense, Rhys, what do you think Saudi investment in the Premier League might do for football in that country? Is it something that's been on the agenda for a while, as far as you know? And what's football following generally like in Saudi?
Well, just you best hold your horses there, mate. You're struggling at the bottom, so I don't know if that one will be used in the Premier League. So we'll soon see, won't we, fellas? No, it's obviously brilliant. Saudi Arabia is such a football-orientated country, and for them to be, everyone knows about the Premier League all around the world, but Saudi's a big football country, and for them now, but if you step into Saudi, you'll see Newcastle shirts everywhere, because he's such a big character, big presence in Saudi Arabia, and me as well. I think the whole country's interested to see what's going to happen. You know, like you said, they are the richest, but how much of this can they spend, and how they're going to do it? It's not as easy as just, you know, on FIFA where you just buy someone and they come willy-nilly. You know, it's not like that anymore. So it's an interesting story, and it's interesting to see how it will play out. But it's brilliant for your club. It's brilliant for Saudi Arabia, and you can't see many negatives coming out of it. That's all I want to say. We want to see the best players in the world play in the Premier League, and the best teams. So let's just hope it all falls into plan, and I'm sure they've got a plan, and hopefully they can finish it.
We hope so. What's the following generally like in Saudi then? What kind of attendances did your team get?
My team was different, and it's weird in Saudi, you know. So you got 4 or 5, probably 4 big teams. By big, I mean big, really big teams. And the rest of us are pretty much the same. So if we're playing someone who's on our level, you might get 2,000, 3,000 maybe. It's strange. But then as soon as one of the big teams come to your ground, it sells out. You know, easy, people everywhere, people on roofs, people cramming in. You know, it's a different level. And then you feel like you're playing away. So it's strange because the amount of money that goes through the country for every team, for them to not have fans, and some of the players that they can lure and still not have fans, and then as soon as these big 4 teams come, the whole place changes. You know, you can feel it for weeks before you play them. You know, and they sell out. They're crazy. You know, the big Al Hilal, Nasser, Etihad, Al Ali. You know, they're huge teams.
What's the standard of football like? Could you compare it to, if you could compare it to maybe in British League, if you can, or the A-League? What's the standard like?
It's so different. That's why some people can handle it, some people can't. Some people deal with it better. You know, it's really it is really technical. There is some really good players, but tactically it's a bit different. But it's a lot slower, you know, because of the weather. The weather dictates a lot, and the Saudi mentality, with all due respect, they're not really the gung ho type of people like Aussies are. I think Aussies, they sacrifice a bit of technical for the will to win, desire, running, you know, heart, everything. And I'm not saying Saudis don't have heart, but I think they're not on the same level as say an Englishman or an Aussie, with all due respect, of course. So it was a different way of playing. I enjoyed it because it was a bit slower, so it suited me. I could get on the ball more and play through the lines. Not many runners over my shoulder and whatnot, but I loved my time there. My daughter was born there. My wife would go back tomorrow and leave me if she could. She's not allowed in without me, she said.
That's interesting, man. Like, it's we don't hear a lot about Saudi, like the place, and no one really knows, because I don't think anyone ventures there for a holiday much from Australia or England. So you're saying that you know, your family loved it. It's just a different perspective. It's really good to hear.
Well, loved it is an understatement, to be honest. It was the hardest place I've had to pull my wife away. You know, my wife likes the pubs and the bars and everything like that. I could get her away from there, but I couldn't get away from Saudi. So it was wonderful for me how settled she was, and to have my daughter there as well was obviously brilliant. We brought a bit of Saudi Arabia back with us as well, of course. My son went to school, made some great friends, and fell in love with football there. And you know, it's something about traveling, living abroad, living an expat life that you can't teach kids. You know, they can go to school all they want, but until they see different cultures and different people, and it's so different, and you can't teach that. So I'm so proud that we've done it. The funny thing is, we said we wanted to play in a foreign country, and there's not much more foreign than going from England or Australia straight to Saudi Arabia. So we jumped straight in the deep end, but absolutely fell in love with the place and had such a successful time there. And I'd always like to go back. We've made some lifelong friends as well. So it was a really positive and enjoyable time in our lives.
We've had this question into the podcast then a couple of times. So it's based on an assumption that football is not popular down under in some way, or it's not as popular as it is in the UK or whatever. So I know that Bobby and Dimmy have got views on this as well, but what's your take on that, Rhys? Do you think it really isn't popular here, or do you just think the other sports in the other states kind of overshadow it a bit? What do you think?
I'd say popular is probably the wrong word. I would say it's growing. It's still growing. It's a tough challenge here. You know, you've got the AFL, you've got the cricket, you've got the rugby, you've got quite a lot of, because it's a hot country, every sport's here, and it's hard to be the number one. And I don't even think you could say what the number one is, because every state's different, you know, like, so it's a tough one. But I think to grow the league now, and I've said it everywhere, I think the one thing we don't have here is promotion and relegation. And I know you two are going to say the same thing as well, because at the moment in the A-League, you know, you only look at the top and thinking who's going to finish top, and I just think, what the hell's a wooden spoon? You know, like it doesn't mean anything. You know, like, you want players to be fighting for their lives, fighting for their jobs, fighting for, and that's the thing that you get in the rest of the world with promotion and relegation. You know, players give absolutely everything. I'm not doubting that, but it also gives you that little bit of grit in your teeth that if you get relegated, you're going to have to find a new club, or you take a pay cut. You know, it can't just be all rosy red, and that's the thing that this league, I think, if relegation comes in, and with all due respect, comes to a point as well where, you know, if your team's not doing well that year, then you can start, you know, moving some of the older players in and bringing younger players in to try them, and then it might not go their way, but then you're giving young players a chance, and it's one of them that loses the bite, loses the hunger, loses a bit of the competition. Unless you're in that top 4 or 5, and then you're fighting for the top, there's not much you do at the bottom, you know. So that's one thing that I'd want them to push. I know that they will be trying their best, because I don't know, it's got a lot to do with finances and whatnot. But I'm sure you two have to agree with me as well. That I think that's what it's missing. I think that's the next step. I don't think we need more teams. I think we just need to add that in, so people are fighting.
I think consequences. Yeah, sorry, Bobby. Consequences is the big word. I mean, for a lot of years, not to diss on a smaller club in the A-League like a Mariners or a Jets, where they've just been battling along at the bottom 2 or 3 for years and years without much consequence. They lose a game, okay, we've lost 5 in a row, that's okay. But in football, it's not. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be like that. I mean, me as a Victory fan, the last 2 years have been awful, and last year finishing bottom. I mean, imagine last year we were fighting relegation for the last 5 or 6 weeks. That would have been absolutely intense. And as a football fan, sport fan in general, you can't accept losing, and there's always got to be a consequence to losing. And even having that carrot, even if it's one team going down, or similar to the Bundesliga where they do a playoff between third in the Bundesliga 2 with bottom 1 in Bundesliga, even something like that would make it there's a carrot there, or there's a consequence. If you don't perform, like Rhys said, you're going to lose your salary most likely. You might lose your job. Your whole world will be turned upside down. And to progress in Australia, I mean, football, soccer, like we call it here, football's always been very popular. I mean, in Melbourne especially, Victory's a massive club. Rhys knows we've got 20,000 members. We get 15, 20,000 week in, week out, which would rival a lot of teams over in Europe. It's more the fact here. There's so many sports, and there's so much coverage for other sports. We don't have that same pull, media wise. We don't have that same exposure on free to air TV that other sports get. So, I mean, this year's been good. Channel 10's done a great job promoting comparatively. That seems to have bridged the gap. But it's a grind for football fans in Australia, and it's been quite sad actually, because
like even last year, the last 2 years that Victory have struggled, and they were struggling a bit. Imagine if there was relegation. I think the crowds would have been pumped up even more, because they're going to say, well, we could see arguably the biggest team in Australia get relegated here. I want to go watch it. Whereas though now, because there's no relegation, they're like, oh, there's no point going. If they lose, it doesn't matter. We'll see them next year. They'll be better next year. So I'm sorry. I just want to add that to what you were saying.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect, mate, because I mean, there was a time last year where we did Cop 7 in a derby, and there may or may not been a few of us go to training the next day just to have a word to some of the players to see what was going on. But imagine that. I mean, the intensity and the pressure and the build up would have made the games even more important. I mean, a game against Newcastle Jets fighting for that bottom spot, usually it might mean nothing, but if that's fighting for relegation, that would be enormous. Almost like a final. That's because there's a consequence, and that's where we need to go to the consequence, and always having that there. And I think hopefully we're sort of progressing towards that.
And is there enough teams? I'm assuming there is enough teams underneath the A-League that would be able to make that a competitive second division.
Yeah, I grew up in the NSL era following Melbourne Knights, which was a big club at the time, like in terms of having Paducah and the like there, and having full stadiums, and the South Melbournes, and I'm just talking about Victoria perspective, but even in Sydney Olympic were huge, Adelaide United, Adelaide Olympic huge. So there's a lot of clubs underneath the surface. But the other point is, relegation and promotion needs to come in, but transfer fees need to come in too. Like I know I'm in Ballarat, and Ballarat City lost a couple of A-League players in Stefan Negro and Brandon Lawton to A-League clubs, and they got pittance for them. They got absolutely no money. If you're developing talent underneath the surface and you're selling these guys for what they're worth, that's how you build the clubs. It's the same as everywhere. And you're looking at the MSL or MLS or whatever it is now in America has got ratings really low. ESPN came out with a graph and it was so low, and it's the same reason. There's no competition. You finish last, you finish last. So I think promotion relegation needs to come in, but transfer fees as well to have the likes of your South Melbournes and your Sydney Olympics develop that youth, sell them to a Victory, get you $100,000, $200,000, and then keep building as a club. So I think they're the two things that have to come in, and the league's just got to stop putting teams in the A-League, Stop just giving...
Just for the sake of it. Yeah.
I mean, Melbourne Heart was the biggest mystery ever to put that license in that had no difference to Victory, and it hurt the club as well. So, yeah, let's hope that this comes in, and we're here in 2 years, 3 years, but we hear that a lot, so let's hope it comes in.
Yeah. And in schools, football, soccer is probably the most played sport, is it? Generally across Australia?
Junior-wise, Juniors, it's the most played, There's never been a problem with participation in Australia in terms of juniors. The problem's always been converting those juniors either professionally, a pathway to play. So a lot of A-League clubs I know now are developing their academies, and Melbourne City's got a great one because of the influence of Manchester City. There's never really been a pathway here in Australia to go to a club at 10, 11, 12 and just build through. That's what we've had millions of kids playing soccer or football, but at 15 or 16, that's it. There's nowhere else for them to go. If they're not at that top level or haven't had that top training, they're lost to the game. There's a lot of AFL players who've talked about they played soccer all the way up until 14, 15 and then had a choice. There was AFL academies or there was AFL rep teams to play for, and they went that way. So that's where we've got to bridge that gap, because there's definitely plenty of interest in the game and there's plenty of kids playing it. It's just converting that now into professional footballers.
You were talking earlier about potentially thinking about swapping back to AFL when you were 14, 15. Are the skills transferable between those two sports, do you think? More than they are, say, between football and rugby or cricket?
Not really. I just didn't have the size for rugby, to be honest. I was always a bit of a stick. I don't know why I wanted to play AFL then as well. I think I could just run faster than a lot of them. So I think that was my get out. I think I was also just trying something different. You know what it's like as a kid. You go with the flow. Whatever your mates are doing, you jump on board with your mates. So I think that was my thinking behind it. When I asked my dad, he told me where to go. So I think that shot that one in the arse quite early.
Rhys, well, I've got one final question for you. I can't let it go without asking this question. How long did it take you to cultivate that beard?
I was wondering when that was coming. Do you know what? People don't even know my name anymore. I get called the Beard, and it's just like... It was one. I've never had a beard in my life, ever. And it was just in Saudi Arabia. We were in lockdown for quite a few months, not doing anything. So I just thought, I'll just leave it and see what happens with it. And then it got to a half decent length. We didn't see anyone, so I was allowed to let it grow for a bit, without the embarrassing, when it gets an embarrassing length. And it got to a certain point, and my wife was like, "Oh, it actually looks really good on you," because I was going to shave it. And she's like, "No, it's perfect. It's like it looked really nice." So from then, I've just left it. And even when I signed here, I was doing a lot of media stuff and photos when I signed, and they said, "Look, now is the ultimatum. You can either keep it or get rid of it, because we're doing all the marketing campaign, all the member stuff and adverts and stuff. So you can't 1 minute have a beard and then 1 minute not." So I actually quite like it now. It does get in the way, but it's a talking point as well. And I see a few kids in the stands now with big beards on and stuff like that. So it's quite touching. It's quite touching, to be honest. But it's not a bad effort.
No, it's a great effort.
You can never imagine how much food gets stuck in it.
Dye it white, and you won't need to take the kids to see Santa Claus as well. They can just see him at home.
Santa Claus got a smaller beard than me.
Yeah. Well, just before you jumped on, I just said to the boys, I said, "We've all got beards, but I'm jealous." I said, "I can't grow it like that."
You've put us to shame.
No, it's a good effort. It gets a bit out of hand. You spend more. Sorry about you. This isn't about you, Jack, but I spend more time on my beard than my hair.
No, my hair migrated at the same time as me, so it just went north to south as well.
Oh, I thought it was when the kids around about when the kids came as well, was it?
Yeah, it's going. Mine is going a bit grey since I had my little toddler. So yeah, what can you do?
Just let time take its toll.
Rhys, I think all we can do now is just thank you for your time. That's been absolutely fantastic for us. You're welcome to come back on any time. When Newcastle win the Champions League with the Saudi money, you can come back on. That'll be a good one.
Did you say championship?
Yeah. I think that's more likely, to be fair.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you, all three of you, for having me. It's been a pleasure to sit and have a chat with you, Vagander, and I'm glad to get to chat with a few Victory fans as well. It's always nice to bring back memories and stuff.
Thanks very much.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Rhys.
Rhys. So that's it for this episode of the Two and Under Pod. We'll be back soon for match reviews or match previews. Cheers, guys.
That concludes our chat with Rhys Williams. We wish Rhys all the best for the future, and we loved having him on the podcast. If you enjoyed this, and if you like what you've heard from the Two and Under Pod, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. You can visit our website, www.twoandunder.com. We're on Twitter at @TwoandUnderPod, and we're also on Facebook.